Lily had always been a quiet girl, a whisper in a world that often demanded shouts. Her voice, when it came, was soft, almost apologetic, and her eyes, large and a deep, thoughtful brown, seemed to take in everything while giving little back. But beneath that gentle exterior beat a heart that thrummed with a singular, powerful passion. Elvis Presley. It wasn't just his music, though his songs filled the small house they shared, echoing from the old phonograph in the living room. It was more than the swivel of his hips, the legendary sneer that wasn't really a sneer at all, but an expression of pure, unadulterated cool. For Lily, Elvis was a beacon, a vibrant splash of color in a world that sometimes felt muted. He was confidence personified, charisma made flesh, and watching him even on a grainy television screen filled her with a thrilling sense of possibility. He made her believe that extraordinary things could happen, that a single person could move mountains with just a song and a smile. Her room was a sanctuary dedicated to the king, walls adorned with magazine clippings, concert posters carefully taped up. Even a small faded scarf she'd convinced her mother was the exact shade of blue Elvis wore in blue Hawaii. Her most prized possession, though, wasn't visible on the walls. It was a brand new autograph book, its crisp white pages waiting, almost vibrating with anticipation for the one signature she dreamed of above all others. The summer of 1968, Memphis was abuzz. Rumors had been swirling for weeks, then confirmed by the local news. Elvis, after a string of movies, was back in town. Not for a big concert tour, not yet, but for something far more intimate. He was making a special appearance at a charity event, a benefit for a children's hospital, an event designed to be less of a roaring spectacle and more of a personal gesture from the king to his hometown. It was an opportunity, however slim, that had Lily's stomach doing flip-flops every time she thought about it. "You really think we'll get close enough, Mama?" Lily asked one evening, tracing the outline of Elvis's face on a magazine cover. Her mother, Martha, a practical woman with kind eyes and hands dusted with flour from baking, looked up from her knitting. "Well, honey, they're only letting a few hundred people in for the main event," Martha said, her needles clicking softly. "They say he's going to be greeting folks outside, too, before he goes in. It'll be crowded, but if we get there early enough, who knows?" Early enough? That phrase became Lily's mantra. She pictured it constantly. Elvis, in the flesh, his eyes meeting hers, his hand reaching out for her autograph book. The vision filled her with a dizzying mix of hope and dread. Hope that it might actually happen, dread that her shyness, her constant companion, would betray her at the critical moment. Her shyness wasn't just a quiet nature, it was a physical barrier. When put on the spot, her throat would tighten, her hands would tremble, and the words, however perfectly rehearsed in her head, would simply vanish. She'd tried countless times to practice asking, standing in front of her mirror, "Mr. Presley, could I please have your autograph?" Each time the reflection stared back, eyes wide with panic, mouth refusing to form the sounds. It was humiliating. Even in the privacy of her own room, how could she possibly speak to Elvis Presley? The very idea made her lightheaded. "We have to try, Mama," Lily insisted, her voice gaining a rare firmness. I have to." Martha smiled, seeing the fire in her daughter's usually placid eyes. "All right, sweetheart, we'll be there bright and early. We'll pack a picnic and make a day of it." The day of the event dawned bright and clear, a perfect Memphis summer day, warm and humid, promising sunshine. Lily woke before the alarm, her mind already racing. She checked her autograph book for the 10th time, making sure the pen was tucked securely into the spiral binding. She chose her outfit carefully. Her favorite blue dress, a simple cotton frock, hoping it might catch his eye, or at least make her feel a little less invisible. Her mother, true to her word, had packed a hearty breakfast and a cooler full of sandwiches and lemonade. They drove downtown before the sun had fully cleared the horizon, the streets eerily quiet. But as they neared the designated area outside the charity hospital, The silence began to fade, replaced by a growing hum of anticipation. Other cars were already arriving, people emerging with lawn chairs and blankets settling in for what promised to be a long wait. Lily's heart began its familiar rapid drum against her ribs. The hum was turning into a murmur, then a chatter as more people arrived. Fans of all ages, from toddlers perched on shoulders to grandmothers leaning on canes, converged, their faces alight with shared excitement. Everyone was talking about him, about Elvis. His name was whispered, shouted, the air crackled with his presence, even though he was still hours away. They found a decent spot, not right at the very front, but close enough to the barricades where Elvis was expected to pass. Martha set up their 2 folding chairs, pulling out a thermos of coffee. Lily sat down, clutching her autograph book, her gaze fixed on the empty space beyond the metal barriers. The sun began its slow ascent, warming her face, but she felt a chill deep inside. It was a thrill, a nervous tremor, the kind you feel when standing on the edge of something monumental. Hours crawled by, each minute stretching into an eternity. The crowds swelled, pressing in closer and closer. The sounds grew louder. Laughter, snippets of conversations, the occasional burst of an Elvis song from someone's portable radio. Lily watched, mesmerized and terrified, as people around her practiced their shouts, adjusted their signs, and polished their cameras. They all seemed so ready, so confident in their ability to interact with the legend. Her own throat felt impossibly dry. She wondered if she'd even be able to swallow, let alone speak. Her shyness, usually a manageable weight, felt like a lead blanket pressing down on her, threatening to smother any chance of her dream coming true. She closed her eyes for a moment, picturing Elvis's face, trying to draw strength from the image. "You can do this, Lily. Just one word. Just one whisper." But the words felt heavy, trapped behind a wall she didn't know how to breach. The dream was tantalizingly close, but the chasm of her own timidity felt impossibly wide. The morning sun climbed higher, relentless and bright, painting the Memphis street in shades of golden glare. Crowd had reached a fever pitch, a pulsating mass of anticipation. Lily, nestled between her mother and a particularly boisterous group of teenagers, felt the energy vibrating through the ground, up her legs, and into her very bones. Every passing car brought a new surge of excitement, a collective gasp, only to deflate into a sigh when it wasn't the car. "He should be here any minute now, honey," Martha said, adjusting her straw hat. Her voice was calm, but Lily could hear the excitement in it too. Lily just nodded, unable to speak, her gaze glued to the far end of the street, where 2 large black limousines, polished to a mirror, shine, were slowly approaching, escorted by police motorcycles. A ripple went through the crowd, then a wave building into a roar. It wasn't just noise. It was a physical force, a tidal wave of adoration. Lily felt herself being gently pushed and pulled by the sheer press of bodies, but she held her ground, her small hands clutching the autograph book to her chest. The limousines pulled to a graceful stop just a few yards from the makeshift barricade. Security guards, imposing figures in dark suits, immediately fanned out, creating a protective perimeter. The world seemed to hold its breath for a split second, then erupted. The door of the first limousine opened, and out stepped a man in a sharp suit. Not Elvis. The crowd groaned a collective sigh of disappointment. But then the door of the second car swung open, and the world changed. A flash of gold, lame, a glimpse of dark, perfectly coiffed hair, and then he emerged. Elvis Presley. The roar intensified, a deafening sound that swallowed every individual voice, every shout, every scream. Cameras flashed blinding bursts of light that illuminated the ecstatic faces of the fans. People surged forward, arms outstretched, yearning, desperate for a touch, a glance, anything. Lily, standing on tiptoes, caught her first clear sight of him. He was taller than she'd imagined, broader, radiating an almost visible aura of star power. His suit, a vibrant tailored jacket, the color of a summer sky with darker trousers, seemed to glow under the sun. He wasn't wearing his iconic stage costumes, but even in what was considered casual attire for him, he was magnificent. His smile, when he offered it, was genuine, easy, and utterly captivating. He waved that familiar, almost regal wave, acknowledging the adoration with a warmth that seemed to embrace everyone. Her breath hitched in her throat. He was real. Not just a picture, not just a voice from a record, but a living, breathing person standing just feet away. His eyes, even from this distance, seemed to sparkle a vivid electric blue. He started to move along the barricade, shaking hands, exchanging a few words, his famous grin flashing. Security moved with him, a practiced dance of protection and accessibility. Every person he touched, every hand he shook, sent a tremor through the crowd, as if a small bolt of lightning had passed through them. "Oh my goodness, Lily, he's coming this way," Martha whispered, her voice tight with excitement. She gently nudged Lily forward as much as was possible. In the tightly packed throng, Lily felt a wave of dizziness wash over her. Her hands were suddenly clammy, and the autograph book felt heavy, impossibly heavy, as if made of lead. Her heart hammered against her ribs, a frantic drumbeat that echoed in her ears, drowning out the shouts of the crowd. This was it, the moment she had dreamed of for years was now upon her. He was closer now. She could see the fine lines around his eyes when he smiled, the slight stubble on his jaw, the way his dark hair caught the sunlight. He smelled faintly of cologne, a warm, clean scent that somehow cut through the cacophony of the crowd. He was talking to a woman just a few feet away, laughing, his voice a low rumble that was amplified by the microphone. A security guard held up for him. "Thank you all for coming out," he said, his voice carrying surprising warmth over the loudspeakers. "It means the world to me, and thank you for supporting the Children's Hospital. You folks are the best." Cheers erupted again, louder than ever. Lily could feel the vibrations in her feet. People were practically climbing over each other to get a better look, a closer touch. A woman next to them was holding out a huge faded photograph of Elvis, weeping openly as she begged him to sign it. A young boy held up a battered teddy bear. Elvis, ever gracious, took the photograph, signed it quickly, and returned it with a kind word. He reached out and ruffled the boy's hair, sending the child into paroxysms of joy. He was a master of connecting, of making each fan feel seen, even in the midst of hundreds, but Lily felt herself shrinking. Her earlier determination evaporated, replaced by an overwhelming wave of self-consciousness. Her hands tightened around the autograph book until her knuckles were white. Her throat was a raw, constricted knot. She tried to open her mouth to form the words, any words, but nothing came out. It was as if her vocal cords had simply ceased to function. The sheer magnitude of the moment, the overwhelming presence of her idol. He was only 2 people away now, one more person. Then it would be her. Her chest tightened, making it hard to breathe. Her vision blurred slightly around the edges. All she could focus on was him, his smile, the way he tilted his head as he listened to a fan. She knew with a sinking feeling that she couldn't do it. She couldn't ask. The words were simply stuck, locked behind the impenetrable wall of her shyness. The dream was here within arm's reach, but she was trapped, watching it slip away. He was so close now, so incredibly close. The man standing directly in front of Lily was excitedly telling Elvis about a concert he'd seen in '56, his voice booming with enthusiasm. Elvis listened patiently, a faint smile on his lips, occasionally nodding or offering a brief, "That's right. Thank you for remembering." Lily's heart hammered against her ribs with such ferocity she wondered if Elvis could hear it from where he stood. Her autograph book felt like a lead weight in her trembling hands. She tried to lift it, just to raise it to eye level, but her arms felt oddly disconnected from her brain, heavy and unresponsive. Her muscles refused to obey. "Now, you have to ask now," her mind screamed. "This is your only chance." She watched as Elvis signed the man's baseball cap, his movements fluid and practiced. He glanced up, his blue eyes momentarily meeting the man's. A flash of genuine warmth there. Then he looked past the man, his gaze sweeping over the faces in the crowd. For a fleeting second, his eyes, those famous, captivating eyes, seemed to flick over Lily. Just a flicker? Did he see her? Did he notice the desperate plea in her wide, unblinking stare? She tried to speak, her mouth opened. Just a fraction. A faint, raspy sound like a gasp escaped. No words, not even a syllable. Her throat was constricted, dry as if she hadn't swallowed in days. It was the same old story. Every time she was put on the spot, every time she needed to speak up, her voice would desert her, leaving her feeling exposed and powerless. This wasn't just a school presentation or a family dinner. This was Elvis Presley. The man in front of her stepped away, beaming, his signed cap clutched like a treasure. It was her turn. The space was open. Elvis was looking generally in her direction, perhaps waiting for the next outstretched hand, the next excited shout. Lily's breath caught. She had to do it. She had to. She imagined herself saying it. "Mr. Presley, could I please have your autograph?" A simple sentence. Easy. She'd practiced it 100 times in her head. The sound remained locked behind her teeth, trapped by the insurmountable wall of her shyness. Her hands still clutched the book, refusing to release their death grip, refusing to lift it even an inch. Her eyes, wide and pleading, were fixed on him, willing him to understand her silent request. She felt tears prickling at the corners, a shameful hotness that threatened to spill over. This was it. This was the moment she would regret. For the rest of her life, he was there, and she couldn't even ask. People behind her were pressing forward, eager for their own chance. A woman's impatient voice cut through the air. "Excuse me, dear. Are you going to ask him? Or can I?" The voice jolted Lily, but instead of spurring her into action, it made her recoil further into herself. She felt a flush spread across her cheeks, a searing heat of embarrassment. She was holding up the line. She was being rude. She was failing. Elvis's gaze was still generally in her direction. He wasn't looking directly at her, not now, but at the space in front of her. Waiting for someone to step into it, she felt a wave of despair. He wouldn't know. He couldn't know how much this meant to her, how desperately she wanted that signature, how much she admired him, how truly heartbroken she would be if she left without it. He couldn't know because she couldn't tell him. Her eyes darted around looking for her mother, for help. Martha was a few paces back, stuck behind a particularly tall man, her own face etched with concern as she watched Lily. She gave Lily an encouraging nod, a small, reassuring smile. That said, "You can do it, honey. Just try." But Lily couldn't. The effort felt monumental. Impossible. It was like trying to lift a mountain. The autograph book felt heavier still, a burden rather than a key to her dreams. She felt the pressure of the crowd behind her, the unspoken impatience, the crushing weight of her own inability. Elvis took a small step forward, his hand beginning to lift, perhaps ready to move on. He was about to pass her by. The moment was dissolving, slipping through her fingers like sand. She watched paralyzed, as his eyes began to drift to the next person, a young woman excitedly waving a record album. A silent scream echoed in Lily's head. "No, don't go. Please, just 1 second more." But she couldn't articulate it. Her lips were sealed. The autograph book remained glued to her chest, a symbol of her thwarted desire. King of rock and roll was there within arm's reach, and Lily, the quietest fan in the crowd, was utterly unable to bridge the gap. The unspoken plea in her eyes was all she had, and she feared it wasn't enough. Elvis was indeed about to move on. His hand was already half raised towards the young woman with the album, his smile polite, ready for the next interaction. The crowd surged slightly, eager to follow his trajectory. Lily felt a cold dread settle in her stomach. This was it. He was going. Just as he was about to fully turn, something made him pause. It wasn't a sound. Lily hadn't made a peep. It wasn't an outstretched arm. Hers were still glued to her sides. It was something subtler. Something only a person accustomed to reading crowds, to sensing the unspoken emotions of hundreds of people might pick up on. He'd signed dozens of autographs, already met hundreds of faces. There were the boisterous fans shouting their love, the starstruck fans, eyes wide with awe, the emotional fans, sometimes crying tears of joy. He was used to all of it. But then there was Lily. Amidst the chaos, the clamor, the constant movement, she was a small, quiet island. Her eyes, though, were a different story. They were fixed on him, not with the aggressive demand of some fans, nor the gushing adoration of others, but with an almost painful intensity. They were wide, brimming with a desperate, unspoken longing, yet tinged with an unmistakable terror. Her knuckles were white, where she clutched that small, pristine autograph book to her chest, almost as if she were protecting it from herself. He'd seen shy fans before, of course, lots of them. But there was something about this particular girl, the way she seemed to shrink into herself, almost invisible amongst the towering adults around her. The way her lips moved soundlessly, as if trying to form words that wouldn't come. He sensed the powerful internal struggle raging within her, a silent battle between yearning and fear. Elvis was more than just a performer. He was a master of observation. Years of being in the spotlight had honed his ability to read a room, to pick up on nuances that others missed. He saw the genuine, unvarnished devotion in Lily's eyes, and he saw the profound shyness that was preventing her from expressing it. He knew what it felt like to be overwhelmed, to feel trapped by expectations, even good ones. He remembered his own early days, the nerves, the self-consciousness. He didn't make it obvious that he'd noticed her. He was too smooth for that. He simply let his gaze linger for a fraction of a second longer than usual as he surveyed the crowd in front of him. He saw her trying to lift the book, the visible trembling of her hands, the almost imperceptible shake of her head as if frustrated with herself. A small knowing smile, not his big showman's grin, but a softer, more understanding one, touched his lips. He understood. She wanted something desperately but couldn't ask, and that, he realized, made her need even more profound. Instead of turning fully to the next person, he hesitated. He continued to sign the album for the young woman, but his body language subtly shifted. He angled himself slightly, just a few degrees, so that he was still facing the crowd. But his attention, his internal compass, was now gently pointing towards Lily. The woman with the album gushed her thanks, and Elvis gave her his full attention for a moment. A kind word, a nod. He didn't rush her, even though the security guards were already beginning to usher him along. He gave her that moment. Then, slowly, deliberately, his eyes scanned the crowd, again making it seem like a natural sweep, and then his gaze landed on Lily once more. This time it wasn't a flicker. It was a soft, steady look that held no judgment, only a deep, quiet understanding. He didn't point. He didn't speak. He just held her gaze, his expression almost reassuring. His right hand, which had just returned the signed album, remained slightly extended, open, waiting, not demanding, not pressuring, just waiting. Lily felt a strange sensation, as if a thread had been thrown across the chasm between them. He saw her, he really saw her. And in that moment the crushing weight of her shyness lessened. Just a fraction, it was still there, but it felt less suffocating. The silence between them, filled with the roar of the crowd, somehow became a private conversation, a shared understanding. He knew, and because he knew, she felt a tiny spark of hope ignite within her, a fragile flame that perhaps, just perhaps, this wouldn't be a moment of crushing disappointment. After all, the steady, understanding gaze from Elvis was like a small, unexpected hand reaching out to her in the churning sea of the crowd. Lily felt a jolt, not of fear, but a profound surprise. They still clutched the autograph book, but the death grip had loosened marginally. Elvis, seeing her continued struggle, knew a direct approach might only deepen her paralysis. He had to be subtle, create an opening without putting her on the spot. He was a performer, yes, but he was also a compassionate man who understood the nuances of human interaction. He let his gaze drift away from Lily for a brief moment, as if contemplating something. He then let out a soft, almost imperceptible sigh, a sound only someone standing as close as Lily might possibly hear. He shifted his weight, his eyes casually scanning the ground near his feet as if he'd misplaced something. Then, with a casual, almost accidental gesture, he bent down slightly, just enough to bring himself closer to her eye level, his hand going towards his pocket. as he straightened a small polished guitar pick, not a flimsy plastic one, but a substantial custom-made one glinting silver slipped from his fingers. It wasn't a dramatic fall. It was a quiet, unassuming tumble, landing barely a foot from Lily's shoes, just on her side of the barricade. He feigned surprise, a slight frown creasing his brow. "Well, shoot," he murmured, his voice low, only audible to those right beside him. "Dropped my pick." It was a perfectly natural occurrence amidst the jostle of a crowd. No one around them seemed to notice it was anything more than an accident, but for Lily it was a lifeline. He looked at the pick, then his gaze, gentle and inviting, lifted to hers. He didn't say, "Could you pick that up for me?" He didn't command. He simply looked at her, his eyes asking the question without words. He even gave a tiny, almost imperceptible tilt of his head, a gesture of quiet encouragement. Her mind reeled. He had done that for her. He hadn't just ignored her. He had seen her, understood her, and created an opportunity. Her hands, which had been frozen moments before, suddenly felt a jolt of purpose. The fear was still there, a cold knot in her stomach, but it was now overshadowed by a powerful surge of gratitude and a desperate desire not to waste this chance. Slowly, carefully, she bent down, her blue dress rustling, her fingers still trembling, reached for the pick. It was cool and smooth beneath her touch, etched with a tiny stylized EP. Her heart hammered, but this time it was with a mixture of awe and a nascent, thrilling courage. As she straightened up, Elvis was still there, his hand slightly extended. Waiting, his smile was warmer now, a silent acknowledgement of her small act of courage. Lily gently placed the pick into his open palm. Her fingers brushed his, and for a fleeting second, the warmth of his skin, the surprising softness registered in her mind. It was a tangible connection. A bridge built not with words, but with a simple gesture. "Thank you, darling," Elvis murmured, his voice soft, almost a conspiratorial whisper, meant just for her. His eyes full of kindness never left hers. He didn't take the pick back into his pocket right away. Instead, he kept it in his palm, almost as if he were holding a precious gem. Then his gaze dropped to the autograph book still clutched precariously in her left hand. He didn't point to it, didn't demand it. He just looked from her face to the book, then back to her eyes, his expression a silent question. "Is this what you wanted?" The moment hung in the air, thick with unspoken understanding. He had given her a gentle nudge, a way to connect without the pressure of speaking. And in that silent exchange, Lily felt a profound shift within her. The barrier of her shyness hadn't completely crumbled, but a small, significant crack had appeared. She had engaged. She had responded. And Elvis, the king himself, was still there, waiting. The silent question in Elvis's eyes was clear. Lily felt a sudden surge of adrenaline mixed with a profound sense of relief. He wasn't going to make her speak out loud. He understood. Her grip on the autograph book loosened completely. With a shaky but determined hand, she finally slowly lifted it. Her arm felt impossibly heavy, yet she willed it upward, offering the pristine white pages to him. The pen, still tucked into the spiral, seemed to gleam in the sunlight. Elvis's smile deepened, a gentle, almost tender expression that seemed to say, "There you go, I knew you could do it." He took the book from her, his fingers brushing hers again, a contact that sent a shiver of warmth through her arm. He didn't immediately sign it. Instead, he kept her gaze. His thumb rubbed lightly over the cover of the book as if contemplating its significance. The crowd around them was still buzzing, but for Lily, they faded into a distant hum. It was just her and Elvis in this small, quiet bubble of understanding. "What's your name, honey?" he murmured, his voice low and rich, meant only for her ears. It wasn't a demand, but a soft inquiry, an invitation. Lily's breath hitched. A name, just her name. She opened her mouth, and this time miraculously a sound emerged. "Lily," she whispered, her voice barely audible, but it was there. It was real. A broad, genuine smile spread across Elvis's face, reaching his eyes. "Lily," he repeated, savoring the sound. "That's a pretty name." He then opened the autograph book to the first blank page. He took the pen Lily had provided, his strong fingers holding it with an unexpected delicacy. He paused, his head tilted slightly, then began to write. It wasn't just his signature, that much was clear. His hand moved slowly, deliberately, not the swift, almost automatic flourish she'd seen him use for others. He wrote his name, Elvis Presley, in his distinctive, flowing script. But then, he didn't stop. Below his signature, he added something more. He pressed the pen down for a moment, then began to draw. Lily leaned in slightly, trying to see, her heart pounding with curiosity. He was sketching a tiny, perfect outline of a guitar complete with strings and tuning pegs. It was a simple drawing, but rendered with surprising care. And beneath the guitar he wrote another small line. His hand moved with grace, each letter perfectly formed. He finished, then looked up, his eyes meeting hers once more. "There you go, Lily," he said, his voice still soft. "Something special, just for you." He gently closed the book, and instead of simply handing it back, he placed it carefully into her outstretched hands, closing her fingers around it. His gaze was warm, empathetic. "Don't you ever let anyone tell you your voice isn't important, okay?" he said, his eyes conveying a deeper meaning. "Sometimes the quietest voices are the ones that hold the most truth." He didn't know about her shyness, not truly, not how it stifled her. But he had seen her struggle, and he had offered kindness, acknowledging her in a way that went beyond the usual fan interaction. His words were a balm to her soul. An unexpected validation. Lily could only stare, overwhelmed tears pricked at her eyes, blurring his face. She managed a choked, "Thank you." The words thick with emotion, but they were clearer this time, firmer. A real thank you. Elvis gave her one last warm smile, a comforting nod, then gently squeezed her hand, the one that held the precious autograph book. It was a fleeting, tender touch, a silent farewell. Then, as smoothly as he had arrived, he turned to the next waiting fam, his dazzling smile back in place, ready to greet the world again. The moment was over, but its impact for Lily was just beginning. She stood there rooted to the spot, clutching the autograph book to her chest, her mind reeling, her heart soaring. She had done it, and he had made it unforgettable. The world seemed to rush back in around Lily in a sudden jarring wave of sound and motion. Cheers, the shouts, the flashes of cameras, they all slammed into her consciousness, vibrant and overwhelming after the quiet intimacy of her moment with Elvis. She stood there frozen, the autograph book clutched tightly to her chest, feeling as if she had just stepped out of a dream. Her fingers still tingled from his touch, a phantom warmth that spread through her arm. The scent of his cologne, faint but distinct, lingered in the air, a beautiful echo. "Lily, honey, what happened?" Martha's voice broke through the haze, urgent and filled with concern. She had finally managed to push her way forward, her face etched with worry. Seeing Lily's stunned expression and the tears welling in her eyes, Lily could only nod mute once more, but this time not from fear, but from an overwhelming rush of emotions. Disbelief, joy, awe, gratitude. They swirled inside her like a powerful kaleidoscope. She slowly lifted the book, opening it with trembling hands for her mother to see. Martha gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. "Oh, Lily, look at that." He drew a guitar. And what did he write? She leaned in, squinting at the elegant script beneath his famous signature. To Lily, Martha read aloud, her voice softening with tenderness. "Stay true to your song." Lily felt another fresh wave of tears spill over. Stay true to your song. It wasn't just a generic message. It felt intensely personal, a direct response to her silence, to the unspoken song within her, that she so rarely dared to sing. He had seen her truly, seen her beyond the shyness, beyond the crowd. He had looked into her eyes and known she had something to say, even if she couldn't say it aloud. "Oh, sweetheart," Martha murmured, her own eyes glistening. She pulled Lily into a tight hug, holding her close amidst the swirling crowd. "He's truly a special man, isn't he? He saw you, Lily. He really did." Lily just nodded into her mother's shoulder, tears streaming freely down her face now, but they were tears of pure, unadulterated happiness. The relief was immense. She hadn't failed. She hadn't let her shyness win. He had reached across the divide, gently, patiently creating a space for her to connect. She pulled back from her mother, wiping her eyes with the back of her hand, eager to look at the autograph again. The silver guitar pick, the one he had accidentally dropped, was still clutched in her other hand. She had forgotten all about it. It was cool and smooth, a tangible reminder of the beginning of their quiet interaction. She slid it into the pages of the autograph book next to his signature, a perfect pair. The crowd was still roaring. Elvis still moving along the barricade, his laughter occasionally carrying over the loudspeakers. But for Lily, the magic of the event had condensed into that single private exchange. It was a memory she knew would never fade, a moment that would forever be etched in her heart. She thought about his words. "Don't you ever let anyone tell you your voice isn't important." It wasn't about singing, not literally. It was about her inner voice, her quiet strength, her potential. He had seen it even when she couldn't always see it herself. She felt a lightness in her chest, a buoyancy she hadn't known was possible. The lead blanket of shyness still existed, but it felt looser, its edges frayed by the warmth of kindness. She had come here expecting to be thrilled, perhaps even disappointed if she couldn't get an autograph. She was leaving with something far more profound, a personal connection, a sense of being understood by the very person she admired most. As Elvis finally reached the entrance of the hospital, turning for one last wave before disappearing inside, Lily felt a profound sense of peace. The sun was high overhead, the day warm and bright, but something inside her felt even brighter. The encounter wasn't just about an autograph. It was about being seen, being valued, and being given a gentle push towards finding her own song. The drive home from Memphis was a blur of quiet elation for Lily. She sat in the passenger seat, the autograph book resting carefully on her lap, a constant comforting weight. She didn't want to put it in her bag, didn't want it to get bent or marred. It felt too precious for that. Martha, catching glances of Lily's rapt expression in the rearview mirror, smiled. "You're awfully quiet, honey," she said, her voice soft. "But I think that's a good quiet," Lily nodded, a small, blissful smile playing on her lips. She traced the words, "To Lily, stay true to your song," with her fingertip over and over again. The ink was still fresh, dark and vibrant against the white page. Each stroke seemed to pulse with meaning. He saw me, Mama," Lily finally whispered, her voice still a little hoarse from emotion. "He really did. He knew I was scared to ask." Martha reached over and squeezed her daughter's knee. "Of course he did. Sweetheart, Elvis has a good heart. He cares about his fans, not just the ones who shout the loudest." That was it, Lily realized. That was the core of it. He hadn't just signed. He hadn't just moved on. He had noticed. He had paused his whirlwind of fame and adoration to connect with a single quiet girl who couldn't find her voice. He hadn't patronized her. He had understood her. Back at their small house, the autograph book found its new home on Lily's bedside table, placed with reverence. She spent the rest of the evening poring over it, not just looking at the signature, but recalling every tiny detail of the interaction. The way his eyes crinkled when he smiled, the subtle scent of his cologne, the warmth of his hand, the gentle pressure as he returned the book. She even remembered the sound of his shoes on the pavement, the faint rustle of his suit. Every sensory detail was magnified, burned into her memory. She imagined him dropping the guitar pick again, the casual grace of it, the faint surprise. He hadn't wanted to embarrass her. He had created a bridge, an almost invisible path for her to cross without having to face her biggest fear. Head on. That thoughtfulness, that quiet empathy resonated with her deeply. Stay true to your song. What did it mean for her? Lily often felt she didn't have a song at all. She wasn't musical like Elvis. Her passions were quieter: reading, drawing, observing the world around her. But perhaps her song wasn't about music. Perhaps it was about her own unique way of being in the world, her quiet observations, her inner thoughts and feelings. Maybe it was about finding her own voice, even if it wasn't always the loudest. That night, for the first time in a long time, Lily didn't feel the usual weight of her shyness pressing down on her as she lay in bed. Instead, she felt a flicker of something new, something hopeful. It was a sense of validation, a quiet strength blooming within her. If the king of rock and roll could see something special in her, something worth acknowledging, then maybe, just maybe, she wasn't as invisible as she often felt. The encounter didn't magically transform her into an outgoing person overnight. She knew that wasn't how shyness worked. It was a deep-seated part of her personality, but it had chipped away at the edges of her self-doubt. It had shown her that kindness could bridge any gap, and that sometimes the most profound connections were made not with grand gestures but with quiet understanding. As she drifted off to sleep, the image of Elvis's kind, knowing eyes was the last thing in her mind. He hadn't just given her an autograph. He had given her a moment, a memory, and a quiet, powerful message that resonated deep within her spirit. It was the best kind of gift, one that nurtured growth and whispered of possibilities. The Elvis autograph, complete with its hand-drawn guitar and personalized message, became Lily's most treasured possession. It wasn't just an item. It was a talisman, a tangible link to a moment of profound connection and unexpected kindness. Every morning before she went to school, she would look at it, tracing the words with her finger, letting the memory of that day wash over her. Stay true to your song. Those words resonated deeply within her. She started thinking about what her song might be. It wasn't literal music. It was about her authentic self, the parts of her that she often kept hidden. The first noticeable shift was subtle. In Mrs. Henderson's English class, Lily was usually the last to raise her hand, and even then, only if she was absolutely certain of the answer. More often, she would have brilliant ideas, disciple observations, but they would remain locked in her head, unspoken. One Tuesday, Mrs. Henderson asked the class to discuss the symbolism in a poem. Lily had a clear interpretation, one she felt was unique. Her heart began its familiar flutter of anxiety. Her throat tightened. Then she thought of Elvis, of his kind eyes, of his words. "Don't you ever let anyone tell you your voice isn't important?" She took a deep breath. Her hand, tentatively at first, then with a surprising resolve, rose. It trembled slightly, but it stayed up. Mrs. Henderson, accustomed to Lily's quietness, looked surprised. "Yes, Lily." Lily's voice was still soft, but it was clear. "I think the symbolism. It's about finding beauty in unexpected places, even when things seem dark." She articulated her thoughts, haltingly at first, then with a growing confidence as she spoke. She didn't elaborate much, didn't dominate the discussion, but she had contributed, and Mrs. Henderson nodded, a genuine smile on her face. "That's a very insightful point." Lily well said, a small victory, but for Lily, it felt enormous. It was a tiny crack in the wall of her shyness, a testament to the quiet courage Elvis had instilled in her. She started carrying a small notebook with her, not just for school, but for her own thoughts. She began to sketch more, filling the pages with her observations of the world, the intricate patterns of leaves, the way sunlight caught dust motes, the expressions on people's faces. It was her way of expressing her song without words, a quiet symphony of lines and shadows. She found herself more observant too in the way Elvis had been observant of her. She started noticing the quiet people, the ones on the edges, the ones whose eyes held unspoken stories. She began to understand that listening was as important as speaking, and sometimes even more powerful. Her mother noticed the change. "You seem lighter, sweetheart," Martha commented one evening, watching Lily draw in her notebook. Lily looked up, a rare open smile on her face. I think so too, Mama. It's like he gave me permission to be me, the quiet me, but also the me who wants to try. It wasn't a sudden transformation into an extrovert. Lily remained quiet, thoughtful, and reserved by nature. But the debilitating fear of speaking, the physical paralysis that used to seize her, began to loosen its grip. She found it a little easier to start conversations, to share her opinions in small groups, to participate more actively in life. She even joined the school newspaper for a semester, finding she enjoyed writing where her thoughts could flow freely, without the pressure of immediate verbal delivery. She wrote about local events, about interesting people in their town, always trying to capture the essence of their song, just as Elvis had recognized hers. The experience with Elvis had taught her a profound lesson, that true impact often came from empathy and genuine connection, not just from grand pronouncements or overwhelming presence. Taught her the power of being seen and the importance of seeing others. That day in Memphis, the king of rock and roll didn't just sign an autograph. He planted a seed of confidence and self-acceptance in a shy young fan, a seed that slowly but surely began to blossom. Years melted into decades. The world changed, as it always does. Elvis Presley passed away far too young, leaving behind a legacy that transcended music and fame. His memory, however, continued to burn brightly for Lily, a constant comforting flame in her heart. Lily, now a woman in her late 20s, sat in her small sunlit studio apartment, a faint scent of turpentine and canvas in the air. Her fingers, stained with paint, moved deftly, adding a final touch of color to a portrait. Her song, she had discovered, was art. She had pursued painting, finding her voice in brushstrokes and colors, in capturing the unspoken stories she observed in the world. On a small antique desk in the corner, nestled amongst brushes and tubes of paint, sat a simple wooden frame. Inside it, carefully preserved behind glass, was the autograph book open to that special page. The ink had faded slightly over the years, the paper yellowed, but the signature, Elvis Presley, the small hand-drawn guitar, and the words, "To Lily, stay true to your song," remained perfectly legible, as potent and meaningful as the day they were written. Tucked neatly beside it, the silver guitar pick still gleamed. She often thought about that day in Memphis. The memory was as vivid as if it had happened yesterday. She remembered the crush of the crowd, the blinding flashes, the roar, and then the sudden profound quiet of her interaction with him. She remembered the paralysis of her shyness, the burning shame, and then the unexpected grace of Elvis's gentle approach. It wasn't just an autograph. It was a pivotal moment, a turning point that she carried with her always. It had taught her that kindness could be a powerful force, that empathy could cut through the loudest noise, and that a single act of genuine understanding could change a life. Because of that day, Lily had learned to value her own quiet strength. She had learned that her voice, though soft, was no less valid or important than any other. She had learned to express herself through her art, to share her observations and feelings on canvas where her song could be seen and felt without the need for spoken words. She had also carried forward Elvis's subtle observation skills. As an artist, she honed her ability to see the unspoken, to capture the essence of people and moments that others might overlook. She sought out the quiet beauty, the hidden depths, the untold stories. Her art often featured lone figures, moments of serene contemplation, or the subtle dance of light and shadow reflecting her own contemplative nature. Sometimes, when she felt overwhelmed by a commission or a creative block, she would pick up the autograph book, letting her fingers trace his name, the tiny guitar, and she would remember his kind eyes, his soft words, his understanding smile. Don't you ever let anyone tell you your voice isn't important. And she would feel a renewed sense of purpose, a gentle push to keep going, to keep creating, to keep staying true to her song. The world had lost its king but for one quiet fan. Elvis Presley's legacy extended far beyond his music and movies. It was enshrined in a simple, unforgettable act of kindness, that had blossomed into a lifetime of courage, self-acceptance, and the profound joy of finding her own unique voice in the symphony of life. He hadn't just signed his name, he had signed his compassion into her heart, a mark more indelible than any ink. And for Lily, that was truly unforgettable.